Disclaimer. This material is for entertainment purposes only, and for no other purpose. Please consult a legal professional for proper legal advice, including understanding what this document means. Please consult the actual legal document for all legal uses. This presentation is no substitute for the actual filed document. We cannot help you if you do not follow this simple, reasonable, and good advice. Please let us know about any errors in this presentation so that we can correct them. Unfortunately, we cannot and will not correct any errors made in the underlying documents, so please make sure the error is a presentation error. Thank you very much for your time, support, and interest. We hope you enjoy this content. Sponsors. Unfortunately, there are no video sponsors or channel sponsors at this time. If you would like to sponsor us, please reach out. All donations are welcome. Thank you. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and share this video with others. Doing this will help us reach other interested people, and will help to support this channel. We appreciate your action. Thank you. Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, U.S. House of Representatives, Washington, D.C. Deposition of Roger Stone. Friday, December 17, 2021. Washington, D.C. The interview in the above matter was held in Room 5480, O'Neill House Office Building, commencing at 10 a.m. Present, Representatives Luria, Schiff, Aguilar, Raskin, and Cheney. Appearances. For the Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Name redacted, Chief Investigative Counsel. Name redacted, Investigative Counsel. Name redacted, Investigative Counsel. Name redacted, Chief Clerk. Name redacted, Chief Administrative Officer. Name redacted, Parliamentarian. Name redacted, Researcher. Name redacted, Staff Associate. For the witness. Grant J. Smith, Esquire. Strategy Smith. Bank of America City Center. 401 East Las Olas Boulevard, Suite 130-120. Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33301. Interviewer, we are here this morning for the deposition of Mr. Roger Stone, conducted by the House Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol, pursuant to House Resolution 503. This will be a staff-led deposition, though members may choose to ask questions. I will note for the record we are joined by the Vice Chair, Ms. Cheney, though we may be joined by other members during the deposition, and I will endeavor to recognize them when they appear. My name is redacted, and I'm the investigative counsel who has been designated to conduct this deposition by the Select Committee. With me today are name redacted, who's the Chief Investigative Counsel, name redacted, an investigative counsel, name redacted, parliamentarian, and name redacted, professional staff. Under the deposition rules, neither committee members nor staff may discuss the substance of the testimony given today unless the committee approves its release. Mr. Stone, you and your attorney will have an opportunity to review the transcript. I would note that, under the House rules, you may have an attorney present, but counsel for other individuals may not be, and therefore are not, present. And the same thing goes with counsel for other government agencies. At this time, I'd ask that your attorney identify himself for the record. Mr. Smith, Grant Smith, counsel to Roger Stone. Interviewer, thank you. Let's lay out some of the ground rules for today. As you can see, we have an official reporter, 2 official reporters who will be transcribing the conversation. The deposition is also being videotaped, but the reporter's transcription is the official record of the proceeding. I'd ask that you please wait until my questions are finished before you start to give your answer, and I will do the best to wait until you give your response before I ask another. The reporter cannot note nonverbal responses such as shaking or nodding a head, so it's important that you respond to each question and give an audible, verbal response. I'd ask that you give complete answers to the best of your recollection. If a question is unclear, please just ask for clarification. If you do not know the answer, just say so. You may refuse to answer a question only to preserve a privilege that is recognized by the Select Committee. If you refuse to answer a question based on a privilege, we may proceed with the deposition or we may seek a ruling from the chairman on the objection. If the chairman overrules the objection, you're required to answer the question. Finally, I would remind you that it is unlawful to deliberately provide false information to Congress. Doing so could result in criminal penalties, including under Title 18, United States Code, Section 1001. In terms of logistics, we can take a break at any point if you need to, whether for comfort or to speak with your attorney. We'd be happy to accommodate that. Because this deposition is under oath, I'd ask that you raise your right hand to be sworn. The reporter. Do you solemnly declare and affirm, under penalty of perjury, that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? The witness. I do so swear. Examination. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, in front of you and your attorney there are binders with some documents that we're going to look at today. I'd ask that you first look at what's behind tab number 1. It's marked as Exhibit 1. This is a copy of the subpoena issued by the Select Committee on November 22, 2021. The exhibit itself contains the subpoena, a cover letter from the chairman, a document schedule providing production instructions, and a copy of the House Rules and Regulations regarding the conduct of the deposition. First, can you please confirm that you are the Roger Stone named in this subpoena? Answer: My name is Roger Stone, and I believe that is correct. Question: And you understand that you're appearing here today pursuant to this subpoena? Answer: I'm here in fulfillment of the subpoena as required by law and to do my civic duty. Question: Thank you. The subpoena also required production of documents that were described in the schedule attached to the subpoena. Do you understand the documents were required to be produced? Answer: I do understand that. Question: Your counsel delivered a letter to the Select Committee on or about December 6, 2021, that you were declining to produce any documents or answer any questions pursuant to the Fifth Amendment. The chairman responded to your counsel on December 9, 2021, noting that a blanket assertion of the Fifth Amendment was insufficient and, to that point, the Select Committee is not aware of any basis for you to fail to produce any documents that would be called for by the subpoena. The chairman's letter also noted that you would need to sit for the deposition and assert objections on a question-by-question basis. I say all this to let you know that my goal for today is to ask questions that are relevant to the Select Committee's investigation with the hope that you will answer. If you have an objection or a privilege assertion, we'll ask that you assert it for the record. I will seek to clarify the basis for the objection to see what the contours of it are. I understand from your counsel that you do intend to assert the Fifth Amendment to each and every question I ask. Be that as it may, I will say that our goal is simply to understand the basis for your objection and fairly evaluate it. And, ultimately, the more detail that you can provide as the basis for the Fifth Amendment objection, the easier it will be for the Select Committee to understand and consider it. Interviewer: I'd note for the record that Mrs. Luria has joined us. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, where do you reside? Answer: On advice of counsel, I will be availing myself of my Fifth Amendment rights in all of the questions today, including that one. Question: How old are you? Answer: On the basis of the advice of counsel, I will yet again assert my Fifth Amendment rights to respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: Mr. Stone, I understand that you'll be asserting your Fifth Amendment right to each question that we ask today. I will note that your position from the public record has been and I think continues to be that you have done nothing wrong with respect to January 6th. In fact, we note that yesterday on your Telegram account you wrote that you would plead the Fifth not because you had done anything wrong but because of past experience, your concern about fabricating perjury charges based on statements made in the deposition today. Do you understand that the Fifth Amendment protects your right to refuse to answer questions if the truth itself would be incriminating? Answer: On advice of counsel, I will yet again invoke my right to decline to answer your question respectfully on the basis of the Fifth Amendment. Question: I will just say that all we want is the truth, which, I believe by your own assertion in the public record, you have stated is not itself incriminating. And so, again, I would ask you, is your position that, by telling the truth today, you believe you are being made a witness against yourself for prior conduct that you believe you could be prosecuted for? Answer: On advice of counsel, I will be yet again invoking my Fifth Amendment right pursuant to the U.S. Constitution. Question: And you understand that it is not a valid basis to assert the Fifth Amendment if you do not believe that the truth itself could lead to prosecution? Answer: Once again, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right to respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: We will note for the record your position on these. The documents that were called for, Exhibit 1 called for the production of documents. Did you search for or locate any documents called for by the subpoena? Answer: Once again, on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: Well, we would ask you whether it's the case that you are taking the position that the act of searching for or identifying any documents responsive to the subpoena would implicate the Fifth Amendment. Same thing with whether a privilege log would implicate your Fifth Amendment privilege. Answer: Once again, I respectfully decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections. Interviewer: I'd note for the record that Mr. Raskin has joined us. Thank you for being here, Mr. Raskin. By name redacted. Question: If you would flip to tab 2-. Mr. Smith: Interviewer, before your next question, is it possible, so we can shorten the statement, that Mr. Stone just says the Fifth or something shorter so we move this along? Interviewer: Certainly. Mr. Smith: Just in the interest of time? Interviewer: Certainly. That's fine. Thank you. Mr. Smith: Okay. Interviewer: Moving forward, we'll understand that if you say Fifth or Fifth Amendment or something there too, that it will capture the statement that you have responded with. The witness: I'm sorry. Could you repeat the tab that you want me to look at? Interviewer: Tab 2. Before I proceed to ask questions about the exhibits we have, I'll stop to see if any of the members have questions. Ms. Cheney: Thank you. I would like to ask a question. Mr. Stone: Do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified? The witness: On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer your question on the basis of the Fifth Amendment. Ms. Cheney: Have you ever spoken with President Trump on his private cell phone? The witness: On the basis of the Fifth Amendment, I will once again avail myself of my constitutional right to decline respectfully to answer your question. Ms. Cheney: Did you speak to President Trump on his private cell phone on either January 5th or January 6th? The witness: Once again, On advice of counsel, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right to respectfully decline to answer your question. Ms. Cheney, and Mr. Stone, did you have any role in planning for the violence on January 6? The witness, once again, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right to decline to answer your question. Ms. Cheney, thank you. Interviewer, are there any other questions? By name redacted. Question, okay. Hearing none, Mr. Stone, behind Exhibit 2 are photographs appearing to show you at the President's residence at Mar-a-Lago in Florida on or about December 27. I will tell you that, with respect to this photo and events related to it, the Select Committee would like to ask you about this trip, whether you spoke directly with President Trump. Answer, I'm sorry. Question, with whom else you may have spoken, whether those conversations were about the November 2020 presidential election result, conversations that you had regarding strategies that the administration or his campaign may be deploying going forward at this point, and, in particular, whether President Trump or his advisors explained to you what they expected to happen on January 6, 2021. Is it your intention to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege to all questions that we would ask about your communications with President Trump or his advisors about their actions or expectations regarding the outcome of the 2020 election? Answer, with all due respect to the committee, I will yet again invoke my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer your question. Question, if you'd take a look behind tab 3-. Mr. Smith, may I just say something? Mr. Stone is here to answer each and every question that you may have. You may not appreciate the answer, but he's here to give a response to each and every question. So, if you have more questions, I don't want it to be deemed that he's giving a blanket answer to a series of questions. He's here to answer each and every question. So, if you have more questions, ask them. We'll stay as long as possible. But I don't want it to be seen as him giving a blanket answer to, all questions you may have. Interviewer, thank you. We appreciate that clarification. By name redacted. Question, behind tab 3, Mr. Stone, is a screenshot from a website that is titled Support the Stop the Steal Security Project. And it has a video that shows you and, in the top left corner, a logo with a ballot box with the words Stop the Steal. Are you familiar with the phrase Stop the Steal? Answer, on advice of counsel, I will avail myself of my Fifth Amendment rights and respectfully decline to answer your question. Question, are you aware that that phrase was taken on and used by an individual named Ali Alexander in response to the 2020 presidential election? Answer, yet again, I assert my Fifth Amendment right. Question, do you know Mr. Alexander? Answer, yet again, I respectfully decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections. Question, during the 2020 presidential election, did Ali Alexander talk to you regarding his use of the phrase Stop the Steal? Answer, with all due respect, I once again invoke my Fifth Amendment right to decline to answer your question. Question, well, the Select Committee would like to ask you about your conversations with Mr. Alexander regarding his and your use of the phrase Stop the Steal and, in particular, your interactions and conversations with him following the 2020 presidential election, including whether you gave assistance to him or other individuals in regard to the Stop the Steal campaign. Is it your intention to assert the Fifth Amendment privilege to all questions that we would ask about those communications or others regarding the so-called Stop the Steal movement and Mr. Alexander? Answer, with all due respect, I yet again assert my Fifth Amendment right to decline to answer your question. Question, and, to be clear, are you asserting that Fifth Amendment privilege in response to those questions because you have a good faith belief that the answers could expose you to potential criminal prosecution? Answer, once again, I will invoke my Fifth Amendment right to respectfully answer your question. Question: Exhibit 3A is the video that was found on this website. And if we could play that, it's going to be on the screen up here. Video shown. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, that's you in the video, correct? Answer: On the basis of the Fifth Amendment, I will decline respectfully to answer your question. Question: Well, in this video, you encourage viewers to visit a website, stopthisdeal.org, to make donations to, quote, help us pay for the staging, the transportation, and, most importantly, the security of our peaceful protesters, end quote, for a January 6th Stop the Steal rally. Did anyone make donations to the project? Answer: On the basis of the Fifth Amendment, I respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: Who had control over the donations that were made? Answer: Once again, on the advice of counsel, I will avail myself of my Fifth Amendment constitutional protection and therefore respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: Did you hire professional security for January 6th? Answer: Once again, counsel, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer your question. Question: Mr. Stone, the Select Committee would like to ask you questions about your fundraising efforts for January 6th events, including who had control over the money, how much money was raised, how, if at all, it was spent, and whether it actually, in fact, went to staging, transportation, and security. Is it your intention to assert the Fifth Amendment privilege to all of those questions because your honest answers might expose you to possible criminal prosecution? Answer: On the advice of counsel, I will avail myself of my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections and once again decline to answer your question. Interviewer: I'll pause to see if any members have follow-up questions based on what we've covered. Mr. Raskin? Mr. Raskin, Mr. Stone, would you answer a question that did not expose you to potential self-incrimination? The witness: On the basis of the advice of my counsel, I'm not going to respond to that question based on my Fifth Amendment rights. Mr. Raskin: I yield back. Thank you. Interviewer: Thank you, Mr. Raskin. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, if you could look behind tab 4, this is marked as Exhibit 4. These are a series of screenshots from a chat on a messaging application called Signal. The title at the top is Jan 5 6 DCOK Security/VIP Chat. And the date says January 1, 2021. Mr. Stone, have you seen this chat thread before? Answer: On the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections, I will respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: The center of the page dash. Mr. Smith, can I ask a question? Yes. Mr. Smith, are these books for us to take with us? Interviewer: They are not. Mr. Smith: Okay. By name redacted. Question: In the center of the first page of Exhibit 4, the text reads, Stewart added Roger Stone. Were you added to this Telegram group, or, excuse me, Signal chat? Answer: On the basis of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, I will once again respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: Do you know an individual named Stewart Rhodes? Answer: Once again, as I said earlier, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right and decline to answer your question. Question: Well, on the second page of this exhibit dash. Interviewer: and I'd note for the record that Mr. Schiff has joined us. By name redacted. Question: on the second page, under the username Stewart, the text says, "This group is for all event organizers and VIP speakers who need Oath Keepers PSD or event security on Jan 5/6, so they can talk to me and my top OK team leaders all in one place." On the following page, page 3, Stewart again writes, "So far we are planning on providing PSD teams for Ali Alexander and Roger Stone." Mr. Stone, were you provided a personal security detail by an individual named Stewart in Washington, D.C., on January 5 or 6? Answer: once again, on the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional right protections. Question: are you familiar with a group called the Oath Keepers? Answer: once again, counsel, with no disrespect, I would decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: if you'd flip to the fourth page of this exhibit, the user Stewart, at the bottom dash. Answer: 1 second. Okay. Thank you. Question: at the bottom of the fourth page, Stewart indicates that he has designated certain individuals who will be involved in, quote, leadership/coordination, unquote, including, quote, Kelly Meggs from FL, who ran the PSDs for Roger Stone, end quote. Do you know a Kelly Meggs from Florida, Mr. Stone? Answer: on the basis of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, I respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: and did Mr. Meggs provide security detail for you before January 2021? Answer: once again, on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections and rights, I respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: on the fifth page, the last page, of Exhibit 4, in the center, an individual with the username Roger Stone posts a graphic with your photograph on it appearing to advertise a MAGA Freedom Rally DC at the United States Capitol on January 6 with Roger Stone as a keynote speaker at 3:45 p.m. The caption beneath the graphic says, "I am very proud to be talking about health freedom and the fight to save America at the MAGA Freedom Rally Jan 6. Mr. Stone, is that your message in this Signal chat? Answer: once again, I respectfully decline to answer your question on the basis of the constitutions as afforded by the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Question: Mr. Stone, as I think you are aware, it's been publicly reported that you were interacting with members of the Oath Keepers on January 5 and 6 in Washington, D.C., and previously had interacted with members of a group called the Proud Boys on trips to D.C., at least in December 2020. We would like to ask you about those interactions, as well as other interactions you may have had with additional groups purporting to provide personal or private security details, such as the 3%ers. Is it your intention to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege to all the questions we would ask you about your use of personal security details or interactions with members of these groups under the Fifth Amendment? Answer: yes, counsel, it is my intention, on the advice of my counsel, to assert my Fifth Amendment rights in response to any such questions, including that one. Question: I'd like to ask you to look at Exhibit 5. This is a printout of a post from what is your personal website, stonecoldtruth.com. The title of this post is Guilt by Association, and it indicates by Roger Stone. Stonecoldtruth.com is your website, is it not? Answer: I decline to answer your questions on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections with all due respect. Question: at the bottom of the second page of Exhibit 5, if you count up, the third paragraph from the bottom, in the middle of that paragraph, you wrote, "The Oath Keepers came forward to voluntarily provide free security for me as they graciously had done at 3 previous rallies in Miami and Tampa." Is that true? Answer: I decline to respond to your question once again on the basis of my Fifth Amendment right to do so under the U.S. Constitution. Question: Mr. Stone, assuming that you wrote this blog post and that the words contained in it are the truth, is it your position that, by writing this blog post, you exposed yourself to potential criminal prosecution? Answer: I respond to answer your question once again on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights under the U.S. Constitution. Interviewer: I'll pause to see if any members have follow-up questions on that line. Mr. Raskin: I'd like to ask Mr. Stone whether you believe that coups are allowed in our constitutional system. The witness: I most definitely decline to respond to your question based on my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections with all due respect. Therefore, I will not answer the question on the basis of the Fifth Amendment. Mr. Raskin: Do you believe violent insurrections are allowed in our constitutional system? The witness: I respectfully decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Mr. Raskin: Do you believe fascist street violence is allowed in our constitutional system? The witness: I respectfully decline to answer your questions based on my Fifth Amendment rights. Mr. Raskin: I yield back. Interviewer: Thank you, Mr. Raskin. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, do you know an individual named Julie Fancelli? Answer: I decline to answer your questions on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: What about Caroline Wren? Answer: Once again, I will assert my Fifth Amendment privilege under the U.S. Constitution not to answer your question. Question: Did Caroline Wren arrange for you to travel to Washington, D.C., for the events on January 5th and 6th? Answer: Once again, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right and respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: If you could take a look at Exhibit 6. Answer: Yes. Question: I can represent to you this is a screenshot from a text conversation between Caroline Wren and an individual identified as Kristen with the initials KD. There is an individual named Kristen Davis who works for you. Is that right? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: Well, this text exchange shows Ms. Wren writing on January 1, 2021, "Good for the plane, we'll book it tomorrow," and providing an email address that has been identified as Ms. Wren's. At the bottom of this exhibit, Kristen with the initials KD responds on January 3, 2021, "Good morning. It's just me and Roger on the plane." You are the Roger that this individual is referring to, correct? Answer: With no disrespect, I yet again decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional right protections. Question: Well, if you'd look at Exhibit 7, I can represent to you that this is a flight itinerary from a company called Private Jet Services for a private jet that was billed to Bluebonnet Consulting, which is Caroline Wren's consulting company, and it lists as its passengers, among others, Roger Stone and Kristen Davis. The itinerary reflects a January 5, 2021, flight from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to Washington Dulles International Airport. Is this the flight that you took to Washington, D.C., on that date? Answer: With no disrespect, counsel, I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Question: If you look at Exhibit 8 behind tab 8, this is a record from the Willard Intercontinental Hotel in Washington, D.C., reflecting a stay between January 5, 2021, and January 7, 2021, for a Mr. Roger Stone. Was this the time period that you stayed at the Willard Hotel, Mr. Stone? Answer: I'm going to yet again assert my constitutional right under the Fifth Amendment and decline to answer your question. Question: The company listed on this information from the Willard Intercontinental is Intentional Light and Wellness. Do you know what that company is? Answer: I yet again assert my Fifth Amendment right and respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: Mr. Stone, the Select Committee, as you can see, has information suggesting that you were on a private flight from Florida to Washington, D.C., on January 5th and stayed at the Willard Hotel. We'd like to ask you about the accommodations that were made, including who organized and arranged these flights and hotel room and who paid for it, and what the purpose of this trip to Washington was. Is it your intention to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege against answering all the questions that we would ask you regarding these accommodations in January of 2021? Answer: I respectfully decline to comment or respond to your questions based on my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections. Question: Is your refusal to answer those questions based on a good faith belief that the answers could potentially expose you to criminal prosecution? Answer: I will respond yet again, counsel, to your request to answer that question based on my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Question: If you look at Exhibit 9 contains a series of images that were found on open sources, websites, advertising speakers for various events in Washington, D.C., on January 5th and 6th. For example, the first page shows an event under the caption "One Nation Under God," sponsored by Virginia Women for Trump, and, as you can see, the first speaker listed is Roger Stone. According to this flyer, the event was to be held on Tuesday, January 5th, from 2 o'clock to 5 p.m. Were you slated to speak at this event? Answer: Once again, I will assert my Fifth Amendment right to respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: The second page of Exhibit 9 is another image that identifies Roger Stone and has your image. And it says this is for the Rally to Save America, presented by 80% Coalition. And it identifies Freedom Plaza as the location, on Tuesday, January 5th, from 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. Were you slated to speak at this event? Answer: I decline to answer your question both on the advice of counsel and under my Fifth Amendment constitutional right to do so. Question: The third page of Exhibit 9 is yet another image, and, this one, you can see your face in the center of the page. And it's for an event called Freedom Rally. This is now on Wednesday, January 6th, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the United States Capitol. Were you asked to speak at this event? Answer: I again assert my Fifth Amendment right to respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: Finally, the next 3 pages of Exhibit 9 reflect screenshots from the archived website wildprotest.com. As you can see, the wildprotest.com website indicates an event, among others, from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. on January 6th at the Capitol building. And the final page of the exhibit identifies, among others, Ali Alexander, Roger Stone, Representative Paul Gosar, Representative-elect Marjorie Greene, Representative-elect Lauren Boebert, and others as invited speakers and featured guests. Were you invited to speak at the Capitol building on January 6th at 1 p.m.? Answer: I will respectfully decline to answer your question yet again on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights and protections. Question: Behind Exhibit 10, I can tell you this is an archived blog post from the website thegatewaybundit.com. The title is Roger Stone Associate, We Had No Part in Jan 6th. And it indicates, a guest post written by Roger Stone Associate Kristen Davis. Is Ms. Davis your associate? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the advice of counsel and my Fifth Amendment constitutional right to do so. Question: At the bottom of the second page of Exhibit 10, Ms. Davis writes, "So what exactly happened on January 6th in Washington, D.C. as it pertains to Roger Stone? The facts are simple and crystal clear. I booked Roger to speak at the Rally to Save America the night prior and was led to believe by Women for America First that he was supposed to speak the following afternoon on January 6th, at a rally they organized which featured President Donald J. Trump, After a completely peaceful rally on January 5, which attracted thousands of brave American patriots, we woke up the next morning expecting to attend the rally at the Ellipse. Is it true that you were expecting or had been invited to speak at the rally where the President would speak on January 6, 2021? Answer: with no disrespect, I will yet again assert my Fifth Amendment right to decline to answer your question. Question: well, Mr. Stone, as you can see, we've identified multiple events where you were advertised as a speaker on January 5 and 6 by different groups in Washington, D.C. The Select Committee would like to ask you questions about how you were recruited to those events, what guidance you may have been given about the purpose of the events, whether you were given any guidance or participated in coordination about the messaging for those events, and then ultimately why you may or may not have spoken at those events on January 5 and 6. Is it your intention to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege to all the questions that we would ask you regarding your speaking engagements on January 5 and 6, 2021? Answer: I believe I understand your question. I will yet again assert my Fifth Amendment right and respectfully decline to answer such questions. Question: Mr. Stone Dash. Mr. Smith, and, again, I'm just going to reiterate, it's your prerogative not to ask the list of questions that you have. He's here and will, provide a response to each and every question should you choose to ask them. Interviewer: I understand. By name redacted. Question: to be clear, Mr. Stone, are you asserting your Fifth Amendment privilege against answering our questions about your speaking engagements on January 5 and 6 because you believe that your truthful and honest answers could expose you to potential criminal prosecution? Answer: I once again invoke my Fifth Amendment right and respectfully decline to answer that question. Interviewer: I'll pause to see if any members have follow-up questions on that line. Mr. Schiff: I do have some questions. It's Adam Schiff. Mr. Stone: were you previously convicted of making false statements to Congress? The witness: I respectfully decline to answer that question based on my Fifth Amendment rights. Mr. Schiff: Mr. Stone, are you invoking your Fifth Amendment rights because of a concern over potentially making additional false statements to Congress or for your involvement in the underlying conduct that led to the insurrection? The witness: based on the advice of my counsel, I will respectfully decline to answer that question based on my Fifth Amendment rights as guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. Mr. Schiff: I have no further questions. Thank you. Mr. Raskin: I'd like to ask Mr. Stone about an article that appeared in the New Yorker magazine on May 23, 2008, called "The Dirty Trickster." And, in that article, Mr. Stone, you're quoted as saying, "Admit nothing. Deny everything. Launch counterattack." Is that an accurate quote? The witness: on the basis of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which I revere, I will respectfully decline to answer that question. Mr. Raskin: did you ever seek any kind of correction for that quotation? The witness: once again, on the basis of the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, I will respectfully decline to answer that question. Mr. Raskin: okay. Thank you very much. I yield back. The witness: thank you. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, later in the post by Ms. Davis, at page 4 dash. Answer: tab 4 or page 4? Question: page 4 of Exhibit 10. Mr. Smith: the previous tab. Mr. Stone: oh. Mr. Smith: I think one more. There you go. By name redacted. Question: I apologize, maybe it's not on page 4. but it's been publicly reported that, I apologize, it is here on page 4. She writes that you and others remained in your suite at the Willard Hotel and watched TV rather than go to the Ellipse rally. Is that accurate? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the advice of counsel, once again asserting my Fifth Amendment constitutional right. Question: If we look behind tab 11 at what's marked Exhibit 11, this appears to be a photograph of you inside the Willard Hotel. Is that what this photograph is? Answer: I decline to answer your question based on my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Question: And the photograph shows numerous folks, including an individual who appears to be holding a video camera. Do you know who that individual is? Answer: I decline to answer, once again, your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Question: Behind Exhibit 12, tab 12, are a series of text messages between Ali Alexander and an individual whose name is Roger Stone, indicating both incoming and outgoing messages on January 6, 2021. As you can see, the exhibit reflects that Mr. Alexander received an incoming text message from Roger Stone at approximately 10:02 on January 6 saying, "As I expected, no speaking spot, no VIP entrance for any of my people." Were you denied a speaking spot on January 6, 2021, Mr. Stone? Answer: On the basis of the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, I respectfully decline to answer your question. Question: How was the information conveyed to you that you wouldn't be speaking on January 6, 2021? Answer: Once again, counsel, with no disrespect, I decline to answer your question based on my Fifth Amendment constitutional protections. Question: You can see a few lines later, outgoing message from Ali Alexander to Roger Stone, January 6, 2021, at 12:46, quote, "Get your ass to the U.S. Capitol," followed a minute later by, "We have a stage in the President's order." Do you remember seeing these messages from Ali Alexander? Answer: Once again, counsel, I respectfully decline to answer your questions on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights and protections. Question: Did the President order individuals to go to the U.S. Capitol, as Ali Alexander indicates in the text message? Answer: Once again, counsel, with no disrespect, I decline to answer your question on the basis of the Fifth Amendment protections afforded by the U.S. Constitution. Question: If we look at Interviewer, and I'll pause to note that Mr. Aguilar has joined us. By name redacted. Question: Exhibit 13 is a video. If we could play Exhibit 13, but we can start it at 43 seconds in. And I'll say for the record that this is a video that was posted to the Instagram account, which we understand to be your wife's Instagram account. And it was posted January 13, 2021. Let's go ahead and play it. And we can stop it at 1 minute and 20 seconds. Video shown. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, that's you in that video, correct? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Question: In the video, you state, quote, "While I was supposed to speak at the Ellipse and lead a march from the Ellipse to the Capitol or speak at the Capitol, or at least allegedly was so, I decided I was not interested in doing any of those things," end quote. Was there, in fact, a proposal for you to lead a march to the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021? Answer: Once again, I will decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights and protections. Question: Who else was supposed to be leading the march with you? Answer: Once again, I will assert the Fifth Amendment rights. Question: Now, you say in the video that you were to, quote, speak at the Capitol, or at least allegedly was so, end quote. Why do you say allegedly in the video? Answer: once again, I will decline to respond to your question based on my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: do you think someone else was using your name without your knowledge to put you at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th? Answer: with no disrespect, I will once again assert my Fifth Amendment rights and decline to answer your question. Question: and, in the video, you say that you declined to march to the Capitol. Why did you decline? Answer: I once again will assert my Fifth Amendment rights to decline to answer your question. Question: and, later in this video, the portion that immediately follows where we pause, you describe leaving the Willard Hotel to go to the airport on January 6th. Is it true that you never left the Willard Hotel on January 6th except to go to the airport? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: well, we do have another video that's Exhibit 14. This is a clip from your appearance on the Tucker Carlson Today program on December 3, 2021, which was just 2 weeks ago. During this clip, Mr. Carlson has just asked you whether you think you would have been arrested had you gone into the Capitol on January 6th. I'd ask, we'll play this from the beginning and pause it at 41 seconds. Video shown. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, you say in this portion of this interview with Tucker Carlson just 2 weeks ago that you got a call at the Willard Hotel on January 6th which you understood to be from the Secret Service, offering to escort you to the Capitol. Did that really happen? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: how would you have known that those individuals were from the Secret Service? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of the constitutional protections afforded by the Fifth Amendment. Question: you also say in the video that you think you were set up. Set up by who? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Question: now, as you can see, the Select Committee would like to ask you about these plans to march or not to the U.S. Capitol. And it would appear from text messages and public interviews and postings that you have made that you were willing to speak publicly about what you understood to be the plans to go to the U.S. Capitol on January 6th and ultimately your decision not to go to the U.S. Capitol. Is it your intention to assert the Fifth Amendment privilege to any questions that we would ask you about your plans or not to march to the U.S. Capitol on January 6th? Answer: and that is correct. I assert my Fifth Amendment rights not to respond to that question or any other related question as you indicated. Question: is it your position that the statements in the video posted to your wife's own Instagram account, themselves, would expose you to potential criminal prosecution? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Question: is it your position that the statements you gave 2 weeks ago to Tucker Carlson, themselves, implicate potential criminal liability on your part? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Interviewer: I'll pause to see if any members have follow-ups on that line of questions. By name redacted. Question: Mr. Stone, have you been interviewed by law enforcement regarding your knowledge of events in Washington, D.C., on January 5th and 6th, 2021? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment constitutional rights. Question: have you been contacted by the FBI regarding January 6th? Answer: I decline to answer your question on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: have you been contacted by any attorneys representing individuals who have been charged for conduct regarding January 6th? Answer: I respectfully decline to answer your questions on the basis of my Fifth Amendment rights. Question: Is it your intention to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege to all questions that we would ask you regarding your contacts by anyone regarding the events of January 6, 2021? Answer: I decline respectfully to answer that question and any related questions as indicated in your question. Interviewer: At this point, I would note for the record that Mr. Stone has asserted the Fifth Amendment privilege as a basis to refuse to answer all of the Select Committee's questions today. Under these circumstances, we will not close the record on the deposition as the Select Committee determines the appropriate course of action in order to move forward. But, before we go off the record, I'll pause to see if any members wish to offer anything else today. Mr. Smith, I have a question. I mean, this deposition was called for a one-day deposition. I'm not sure by what rule you can hold it over or keep it open. So, from our standpoint, I believe this would be closed. Mr. Stone appeared for the time that was shown in the deposition. And I don't know of any rule and there was nothing in the deposition. As you know, many deposition notices do have, or until completed or held over or something. But we're not agreeing to hold it open or to keep it open. Interviewer: We'll note your objection, but, as I explained at the outset, when there are objections based on privilege, it is the prerogative of the committee to move forward with questions and later seek a ruling from the chair on those objections. And so what we will do is we will hold the deposition in recess, subject to the call of the chair, in order to potentially seek a ruling on that objection. Of course, we will give appropriate notice to you so you can be present if and when that will need to occur. Mr. Smith: Okay. As long as my objections are on the record. Interviewer: I understand. Well, at this time, the deposition will stand in recess, subject to the call of the chair, and will go off the record. Whereupon, at 10:51 a.m., the deposition was recessed, subject to the call of the chair. Certificate of Deponent/Interviewee. I have read the foregoing pages, which contain the correct transcript of the answers made by me to the questions therein recorded. Witness name. Date. Thank you for your time. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and share this video with others.